Okay, what I'm doing here is I'm soldering my battery cables. They're crimped on here. What you got to do is you need a bigger torch to do this. You could do it with a micro, or a smaller micro torch. This wire is big enough that you need something a little bigger. I get a little bigger battery cable. That doesn't work. Usually on battery cables I'll use a oxyacetylene torch. What I'm going to do is I'm going to heat this up. I'm going to try and heat the wire and the copper at the same time so that it sucks the solder in. You kind of got to mess with it so you don't. You could do it with a smaller torch, but the issue is if you get it too hot, it will actually melt the insulation up here. So I'm going to do this one too. This one's a little tougher. Again, trying to not get the insulation on fire. This might be better oxyacetylene. Once that starts melting though, it means we're getting close. Trying to keep this close so I don't melt the insulation. And I might on this one. It might be tough. Might end up taping stuff just to make sure that it goes. Yeah, this one I'm going to screw up the insulation no matter what I do. But when you solder a wire, I'll show you in a minute, what it does is it actually pulls that solder back into the insulation and seals it. That got really hot right there. I don't like doing that. See how this side didn't? It's kind of what you're shooting for. We're going to let that completely cool before I touch it. But to know if I got it correctly, I'm going to grab this. Once it cools down, it's going to take a minute. And it should have sucked the insulation or the solder into the insulation. So when I go to move this, it should be more solid. Okay, when you solder a wire, what you want to do is you want to heat the connector and the wire up at the same time. And as it warms up, see how that won't bend past there? That means it sucked the solder up in there. When it did that, it sealed the copper to the insulation. When you're dealing with heat shrink, I'm just putting this on here to mark it. Now that shrunk on there, I'll still move the boot that way. This end, I need a bigger piece to get over the terminal, so I'm going to try and shrink this down the best I can. This stuff will shrink a long ways. I'm just going to seal the wire up. Probably going to end up going a couple of layers on this just to get it there. So I put another piece on there. I'm going to put a couple on here. Trying to get this to shrink down far enough. I hate to do this. Shrinking some more. Let it cool down just a second.